I wouldn't have survived the last 20 years without play and sports giving me the positive energy it did. In fact, as a policy I have taken many years ago, I don't take any serious decisions late in the evening because I found that late in the evening is when my energy is low and tired and cranky, and I'm like, whatever, let's just go ahead. And I take a bad decision. Next morning from 6 to 7, 7:30, I play the same decision, the same me, the same business. I think differently. And suddenly I am like, you know what, I can take on the world. My name is Saumil. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sports Village. We've been trying to make the world a better place by getting more kids to play since 2003. And we're hoping to build the largest youth sports platform by partnering with schools, colleges, brands, CSR donors, governments, and parents, and try and get 100 million kids to play. By background, I am an engineer from IIT Bombay, an MBA from IIM Bangalore. Spent a few years in Wipro, and then have been an entrepreneur since 1998. I had a failed tech venture before this and started Sports Village in 2003. And it's now been 17 years, and it's been an interesting ride, tougher than we thought. A lot of fun, lot of positive and learnings in terms of what not to do and what to do.
Hello everyone, my name is Srikanth. I am the host of the show Inspire Someone Today. This podcast brings in personalities from a cross-section of our society who will share their perspectives, learnings, hacks and experiences that can inspire all of us in our journeys. Come, join me on this ride. So Saumil, thank you so much for being on the show. It's my pleasure to have you on this podcast. Thanks for joining despite your busy schedule.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So you have been rated as one of the top 50 leading influencers in the education sector. And you have started this whole mission of impacting close to about 100 million kids. Tell us a little more about your mission. What is it all about, and how did you kind of get the inspiration to do something like this?
So, our whole mission as Sports Village and our vision of making the world a better place by getting more children to play is obviously centered on this notion of play and why and how play can make a very positive impact on the world and kids at play specifically. And if you think about all of us as kids of different ages, as I say, adults are nothing but broken kids, faulty kids, So, so if you think about that as a construct. And our view is that the play experience that every child, as from the time it is born, and the child learns about the world through play, they learn about key life skills, learn about how to interact with others, learn to deal with failure, learn to set goals, learn to negotiate with the world around. But a lot of very fundamental aspects of what is success and what determines success in this world, whether it's corporate world or in the social world, society, is incumbent on learning some very fundamental skills which are available through a very fun and engaging manner called play. And our view is that we as adults have forgotten how we learned through play, how much fun it was, how engaging it was, how we enjoyed it, and we're trying to find other ways of learning while the most magical medium of in a fun and engaging manner of play is available. And therefore what we are trying to do is to really present this medium of play and sports to all the different stakeholders, like a brand, like a school, like a college, like a parent, like a government, like a CSR donor, and or apartment complex, to say, look, you know what, it is possible to leverage play and sports for your objectives. And we found as we went down this path over the last 17 years, Srikant, that within the first 30 seconds, everybody says, yeah, of course, sports is very good for us and play is very good. And nobody disagrees with the why sport or why play. Where it gets stuck is the how play and how sports. And what I mean by that is there are constraints about limited space, limited time, different objectives, funding, and a bunch of other stuff. So very often this getting to play for kids is not about why should they play, it's about how do I make it happen within the current context of constraints of space, time, and funding. And what we as sports players have been able to do over the last 17 years, after having, of course, gone through multiple failures and projects, multiple ventures within sports with the idea that didn't work out, we have essentially found ways to align the interests of different stakeholders, like a brand, like a school, like a parent, like a CSR donor, like a government, and through that alignment, get the support to get more kids to play. In terms of your question about why play, one is, of course, personally, we as a team believe that play is a very powerful, magical medium, and all of us have individually benefited from it in our own way. As we have grown up and seen play, and I still play. A lot of my colleagues still play, and therefore it feels like this is something that is magical, that is available, that can make such a big difference to the world today. It can solve a lot of the world's problems in terms of play to build immunity. If you think of the current COVID context, physical activity is seen as one of the three ways in which you can improve your immunity, apart from nutrition and the other pieces are not in your control, your genetic background and your socioeconomic context. So physical activity and play is one: play to build immunity, play to build community, break barriers, bring people together, play to build educational outcomes of improved discipline, improved focus in classrooms, improved academic outcomes, play to build brotherhood, play to build nationhood. So I think it's possible to do. And what we as sports people are trying to do is to say, you know what, it's possible, and we are here. If any of you has a business problem, or has a problem that needs to get solved, call us, and we would try and see how we can present a solution using play and sport to solve your problem. And we, of course, believe that the whole world's problems can be solved through play and sports. And hence our view that we can make the world a better place by getting more children to play.
Oh, that's very profound, isn't it? Make world a better place by bringing play into the element. And any success stories or any stories at all that you can share at this point of time, how the whole role of play has made a big difference in what you have seen over the years.
For sure. I mean, so we have seen play and sports help with academic outcomes. We have seen play help get girls more included into community. We have seen play bridge the gap between underprivileged and overprivileged or privileged kids. We have seen play bring disparate communities together. We have seen play help build teamwork, help build leadership. We have seen schools, brands. We have seen brands use play for achieving their goal of engaging with consumers through play. We have seen CSR donors in education achieve better educational outcomes by adding sports as a layer, because then kids want to come to school, kids are more focused, they are more engaged, and therefore all the investment they are making on academic, core academic concepts are now have improved efficacy. Because at the end of it, if you think about investment in education, it all the investment finally has to come to bear when the child pays attention to what is being taught and the child is fully engaged. If that is not happening, everything else is just superficial. We can build toilets, we can build classroom, we can build smart classes. The kid is just not engaged, kid is just not energized, kid is just not there. It's all, we're just going through the motions and doing tick boxes, right? It's nothing has happening. But through play and sport, we have kids who are engaged, kids who want to be in school, kids who are able to negotiate with their peers, they're able to understand how to deal with the world, and therefore there is very positive learning outcome.
So one way of getting engaged kids is through play and sports. So the better they are there, the better engagement you see in the classroom.
So that's the, let's say, call it the softer side. The adult society very often needs numbers and impact, and we also have data across the last 10 years of what we call our annual health survey, where we have assessed children's fitness and skills across multiple parameters like flexibility, core muscle strength, upper body strength, lower body strength, BMI, hand-eye coordination, and so on. And we have seen improvement year on year, that when there's a structured program in a school which is delivered with the same structure, rigor, inclusion, age appropriateness as a core education program, kids get better physically, they get fitter physically. And if the child is fitter physically, child has better skills to of hand-eye coordination and associated skills, then when they go to play, they will enjoy that experience more, as against a child who doesn't have the fitness, who doesn't have the skills, and then you send the child to play, he or she is not going to enjoy the experience.
So what you're basically saying in the corporate lingo is we have what is called as KPIs. So by focusing on play and sports, an individual KPI of the child or the student or even adults increases through means of their BMI, through means of their hand-eye coordination, so on and so forth. Hence, a better output.
Yeah, so there are two parts to your KPI question observation. It's a good way of looking at it. One is the physical, which is I'm just physically fitter. I have more energy. I have more stamina. I can put in longer hours, and I'm just more positive. Second is
Mhm.
the let's say psychological. I can deal with failure better. I can engage with a team better. I can work in a team better. I can set goals. I have a discipline to follow through. I don't need to be followed up by my boss every time because I have my own discipline. And think about it, that's what is missing. Most managers, if you speak to, their problem is this. And our submission is that the problem is this because we have a generation of adults who have not been through the play and sports experience in a structured manner and who are now having to play a role for which they don't have the skills and the fitness because they have not been through the grind of a discipline and of hard work and dealing with failure in a fun way called games and play. And now suddenly they're being put into the corporate world and they're saying perform. Of course they're going to struggle.
I think that's a beautiful connection out there, Saumil. So you have this big audacious goal of getting 100 million kids to play. So what is your plan? How do you kind of plan to scale it up? How do you plan to take it 100 million and beyond?
So, as they say, a vision of 100 million kids is not what the vision is, but what the vision does.
Hmm.
What the vision does is make us think differently, make us get uncomfortable with small successes while we will celebrate our small successes, but make us say, yeah, this is fine, but we are here for a much bigger goal. So I think that's the core reason behind this large audacious number. On a serious note, we think the scalable and sustainable way of getting kids to play is going to be through education because education is something is happening at scale and will continue to happen at scale, whether it's old-fashioned learning, blended learning, online learning, whichever we want to call it. That's not going away. And if we are able to integrate play and sport into the education process, because it really sits there, its rightful place is there. As children, all of us learned when we are born through play. Even today, you look at a child, it learns through play. But somewhere around the line, we start thinking of play as frivolous and academic learning as serious. And play as this, or do it when you have a spare time and do, somewhere this notion of play as frivolous has to get revisited to think of play as serious fun. That is serious fun. It's very important that kids have this fun. In fact, there is this quote that play is defined as scientific experiments conducted by children. Because when
Hmm.
they are playing, they're experimenting with the world. They're learning about the world, learning about how to deal with, for example, if I'm playing with you as a child, I'm learning about how to deal with Srikanth. What does he like? What doesn't he like? Where does he lose his temper? What is he good at? What is he bad at? And over time, I get better at dealing with people because I have now seen a range of people. Now, these are this is education. Education is not, trigonometric equation Fourier transform. Education is having a bunch of kids who are going to grow up to be healthy and productive adults. And I think play is there. To your question, we think 100 million kids will be achieved through the core education process, but education not just through schools, also the way parents think about bringing up their children and think of their own education, how parents educate at home. Therefore, in the current COVID context, home is a new playground. We're trying to get kids to play at home.
Well, that's a good perspective. Again, from a naysayer standpoint, if you were to kind of say that, I think everybody would want to encourage, want to have their kids play. Just not kids, even adults, I would say. And what would be the stumbling block would be lack of infrastructure. And lack of infrastructure is just not the big playgrounds. It's also access to the right coaches. It's access to the right set of information. It can be nutrition, it can be strengthening, so on and so forth. So how do you kind of look at this and fill that particular gap? Yeah, play is one thing, but all the paraphernalia around it, how do we kind of look to kind of fill that gap?
So I think it's a great question. I think the first thing we have to go past is it worth it? If we say it is worth it, then we have to find a solution. Because if it's
Mhm.
not worth it, then we'll keep circling back to finding objections as against finding solutions. That's one very important thing. And hence this notion of improved fitness, improved social skills, improved success, improved personality, improved immunity in the current context, right? So on. Second, the constraints typically are around time, around space, and around, let's say, appropriate guidance, which is what you refer to of coaches. I think the larger constraints are around time and space. What I mean by that is if you had a playground next to your ground, next to your house, even if you didn't have a coach, you would have gone down and played,
True.
right? So the coaches is not the real constraint as much as time and space is. Now, the way we approach this over the last now 10, 12 years in the whole, from 17 years now, is space. There is this notion that sports is equal to big stadiums, sports is equal to large grounds, sports is equal to huge. If I don't have a big football field, I can't play football. But the reality is that 95% of the play actually happens in 3 by 3 by 3, 5 by 5, gully cricket. You know, whereas so actually, if you think about the time that you have played as a child, very rarely would you have played in a big ground. You'd have played in a neighborhood park, in a small plot, maybe in the road, and that's the way we have played. But somewhere we think, oh, sport or play means big ground. So therefore, my point on the space front is make the most of what you have instead of saying, because as an entrepreneur, I don't think I can convince the government to have playgrounds in every zip code of the country, right? But what I can do is to say, here's a solution, Srikant, for you and your child and your friends, even with this 500 square feet parking lot in your apartment. Here's what you can do, and there are solutions available. And the solution has, let's say, you put a net, put sort of safe, and so on. So there are different solutions available to make the best use of space. Second part of that is to think about the experience of play and sport and break it up into fitness for play and sport, skill for play and sport, and match play. Typically, you need a large ground for a match play. For fitness or skill, even the world's top teams do it in one small corner of the ground. The Indian cricket team, if you see practicing, it does it in one small corner of the ground. They don't use the whole ground. So both fitness and skills don't require large spaces. As far as match play is concerned, we can create games which are designed for limited space. If you can't play 11 by 11 football, play 3 by 3 and change teams every 10 15 minutes. As kids, we've done this. Somewhere as adults, we don't think about it. But as kids, we've done exactly this, right? You've made rules that, okay, if you hit on the left side, you're out because some uncle's car is there and uncle's going to scold us. All of us have done this. So one is the experience can be customized for the space. The other part is time. In the pre-COVID world, the issue was that kids are going to school and they're coming back, then there's homework, and therefore there's no time available. And hence, our whole thing was in the school's PE period, just deliver a better experience because that time is available to the kids. In the COVID world, time is no longer a problem. Space is a problem, right? So what we've done is we said home is a new playground. In your home, with a 5 feet by 4 feet space, with video interactive learning, you can still play. You can still learn the right fitness. You can still learn the right skills. We can still have a leaderboard. We can still have virtually recreate the experience of playing a real sport while you're in the safety of at home. So there's no COVID worry and all that stuff. So my point to you, Srikant, is that it is possible to do it. And as a company, we are committed to making sure that we will come up with solutions. Of course, they are not, like you said, as a naysayer, of course, it's not Barcelona playing against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu and this nice lush green outfield and it's not playing in Lord. Of course, it's not that. But tell me who's playing like that? I have two choices. I can say, oh, you know what? There's no space, no time in the pre-COVID world, or there's no space, no time, no safety in the COVID world, and say, therefore, kids, no play. Or I can say, you know what? We have to play. This is the best we can do. I think, and that's the key piece where I think adult society has failed our kids. Adult society needs to make the effort to say it is important and I'm going to back my words with action and not just make speeches on TV saying, oh, sports is important. And it's important for all kids, not just for people winning medals. As a percentage, the people winning medals are 0.001%. The remaining 99.999% kids are getting nothing. And therefore, adult society has to step up and say, yes, kids play is important. And here is how I am enabling this for you. For example, in the complex where I stay, there was a tennis court which had a metal grill, and kids were playing football inside the tennis court. And obviously, the ball was bouncing off the metal grill and making noise, and the adults were complaining that it's making too much noise, and they were shutting down the play.
Mhm.
Long story short, we now have a net not a metal thing, but just the net, the nylon net, all over, even the top. So the ball cannot come out. One, it doesn't make any noise. Two, now we have lights so we can play through the night. That's all it's required. Now, this could have solutions could have been solved by adults 15 years ago. There's no rocket science to the solution, but a bunch of adults has to say, yes, we will solve it. And what we are trying to do as a company is to say, look, it is possible to solve it. Let somebody who wants to solve it reach out and we'll find a solution.
And the way I kind of interpret this is more a adult movement than a movement for kids, because the mindset change needs to happen there. And if that happens, I think we as a society can automatically embrace this whole new concept of play and sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about it. Let's say as adults, we stop buying apartments which don't have a playground. In 6 months, all the real estate guys will come up with ads about a playground.
Mm-hmm. As simple as that.
That's it, right? So,
Right.
my point is, we as adult society have not put our money where our mouth is. We make statements and we participate in polls about making India a sporting nation. We will do this. India should win medals. Child is not able to play. What are you doing?
I mean, a lot of the folks who are listening to this, they would definitely want to kind of step back and say, okay, what can I do? How can I kind of be part of this movement? What would be your recommendation to those bunch of individuals?
So I think first of all, remind yourself of the fun and the magic that you experienced as a child. I think all of us
Mm-hmm.
have forgotten what it was like to play. And when you've forgotten what it's like to play, you don't value what the other child is experiencing because you've forgotten. So play yourself.
Get the child in you outside
Yeah,
of you.
yeah, yeah. For example, you believe in something, which is why you started this podcast, right?
Right.
Look at your actions, Rika. You believe in the power of this whole medium and finding way to inspire others, and therefore you're doing what you're doing. Now the adult has taken on a role because you believed in it. Now, if you didn't believe in it, this won't be happening. So therefore, that's the first part. That right, the first part. The adults need to first remind themselves of that they were kids and how it was fun. Maybe they should just play. That's one. Second is if you can't play for a variety of reasons, time, space, skills, fitness, whatever, right? Find ways to help the kids in your neighborhood, in your apartment to play more. Go and talk to the kids. They will tell you exactly where the problem is. They will say that uncle in that flat is the one who's stopping us from playing.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, you'll get exactly as specific answers like that. Go and talk to the kids and solve that problem. Help the kids negotiate the adult world because the kids are not negotiating the adult world. The adult world is telling the kids to get lost. And then we are saying we don't have connection with the kids. Of course, we don't. I mean, all you're doing is giving instructions to the kids. As an adult, help the kids negotiate their way with the adult world. Go and talk to that uncle who is belligerent, right? And the
Yeah.
third part is if you want sports to progress, if you want to have more money in sports matches that are happening in the neighborhood park,
Mm-hmm.
think about this, Srikanth. Let's say in the park next to my house, and I go and play and so on. There are all kind of matches happening. Imagine if there are, let's say, 5,000 people watching some of these matches on a weekend. Immediately, sponsors will come. Immediately, media will come, social media or otherwise. Immediately, the quality of game will go up. Immediately, the quality of the infra will go up. Everything will happen. Now, we as adults or as supposedly sports lovers only want to watch IPL and Champions League on television. We don't want to take the trouble to watch that playground next door where Papu and Chappu are playing. Then how will they get the support? Somebody has to support, no? Right?
So the incentive is for the locals to kind of support back them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, see, that's what I'm saying. If you say I want India to be a sporting nation, then first go and watch the people who are playing. No, first you play. Second, you help kids to play. Third, there are people who are playing who are struggling with poor infrastructure, poor whatever. Tickets are not being sold. Nobody's coming to watch. Go and watch. Imagine if our football stadium had 100,000 people watching in every match. Imagine how much footballers would get paid. Why is it the captain of the Indian football team has to make a passionate appeal saying, please come and watch my game? I mean, it was being celebrated. It was a slap on everybody's face. So I think these three: play yourself, support kids in around you who are playing, help them negotiate with the place around. Very often, very small things like the next thing I told you was just a conversation that we had, and we just had to stay with the agenda and just go out and watch other local games.
Great. I think those are very easy tips to follow. Play yourself, help somebody to play and go watch if somebody is playing in your neighborhood. That moves us into the next segue of this particular conversation, which is also about entrepreneurship. I think even before a lot many folks thought about entrepreneurship, you have been at it now a little more than 2 decades, and entrepreneurship more in the sports education sector. I'm sure you had your own learnings, own mistakes, all of those pieces. So, if somebody were to look at making a pivot into entrepreneurial journey, what would be your recommendations to folks like them?
That's a tough one. So I think the first one is why. I think the you have to answer the question why very clearly and honestly and not fool yourself. Why are you doing this? And very often some people do it because they're bored of the corporate job and they just think the other side is exciting. Very often some people do it because they think they read about somebody else making money in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years and say, okay, I'll also do something. Right? Very often the reasons are very different of career boredom or being fascinated by this thing of making money very quickly and so on. I think the why has to be something very deep in terms of something you really believe in because things will go wrong. And when things go wrong, if you don't believe in what you're doing, you will quit. And then I would say, why the hell did you even start? If you're going to quit at the first obstacle, then just take your time, think, and commit to something that you really believe in. That's one on why. Second part is this distinction between a business and a hobby, right? You can have a passion which is a hobby, in which case do it whenever you want, have time and follow it up and so on. But if you want to make it a business, then the rules of business apply. It has to be profitable at some point. It has to have a certain value capture for yourself as an individual. If you're making 100 rupees in the market today, maybe not 100, at least 80, 70, 60, something you should be making at some point. It's fine, there'll be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of investment, but at some point the business should support you in a sustainable manner. I'm just thinking about it individually, but you can expand that to the co-founders and others. So don't confuse a hobby with a business. It's a business, treat it like a business and ask the tough questions of a business. If it's a hobby, then do it as a hobby. Keep your day job and maybe do a part-time job now and just do more of a hobby and balance that. The third is the notion of time. I think the biggest mistake people make is they come into this entrepreneurial journey with a very implicit, unstated notion of limited time कि 5 साल करेंगे and then निकल जाएंगे बेच के निकल जाएंगे या 5-7 साल max and then and very often people are of a certain age and they add 5-7 years to their life and they say interesting by the time I would have made my money and then I would do what I want to do and all that stuff, right? And what happens with that is that things take longer than you thought, and you finish a year, and things are not really gone as much as you thought they would. Then you're almost into the second year, and if you had a 5-year time horizon, suddenly you're panicking now. Like, oh my God, I had 5 years to kind of change the world, and it's been 2 years and nothing has happened.
Right.
And suddenly you ask yourself questions around: Am I not smart enough? Is my business idea wrong? Am I doing it wrong? And then you can do stupid things like either quit or think that if I pump more money into it, this will go faster. So, depending on how much capital you can raise and so on. And very often, that is the source where what they call the value of death, right? You start with enthusiasm and you have this high, and so then there's the value of death, where most ventures die. That the market doesn't care what your background is, market doesn't care how good you are, market doesn't care what degrees you have, market doesn't care whether you are whatever MBA or whatever. Doesn't matter. Market only cares whether your product meets my requirement. At best, because of the background, they will say, okay, let me listen to you. And they might listen to you for 5 more seconds because you have a background and some degrees. But after that, you have to make sense. Right? So, this notion of time and that things take time to build. I think if you're not prepared to do it for 10 to 15 years, if not when you start to think for the rest of your life, I think you should ask yourself really this question of do you really want to do it? And the last part is I think dealing with failure. I think our education system doesn't prepare us to deal with failure, and entrepreneurship pretty much makes you face failure every second, experiment. And if you're not psychologically prepared to deal with failure, and that goes back to how have you been brought up to deal with failure, and that goes back to play at one level. but then you will have a tough time because suddenly you start asking more fundamental questions about yourself. That am I the failure? Whereas the venture failed, you're not the failure. But if you don't have the strength inside, you can very quickly get into, oh, I'm a failure, and that has very tricky consequences later on.
I think these are very beautifully elicited points for somebody to kind of factor in before they jump into the entrepreneurial journey, which is know your why, figure it out whether it's a business or a hobby, time, is there a time constraint, and how do you deal with failure? And that kind of makes a very good full circle if you were to tie it back to the sports and play that we were talking about. How does that play out with the whole entrepreneurial journey?
So for me personally, there are two parts. One is this: think of it as a almost a metaphysical thing of the experience of play and playfulness is pretty much what you do in a new venture. You're playing with an idea, you're trying different things. Oh, this didn't work, let's try that. Oh, this didn't work, let's try that. Oh, I can't play with you well. Oh, let me find somebody else to play with. So if you think about play in a slightly more as a metaphor, you're playing with your career, with the world, with the idea, and having fun. And I'll talk about the fun part separately. And so that's one at a metaphor level. And another level for me personally, as you do a venture, if you think about it, you are constantly giving positive energy to everybody around you. Because everybody else is a naysayer. Oh, it won't work. Oh, we don't want you. Your product didn't work. Oh, I'm quitting. Why will I invest in you? I'm not going to invest in you. You know, I want more money as an employee. And as a founder, you are constantly giving positive energy. Don't know it will work. Look at the opportunity. See how big it is. It's going to happen. And you're constantly giving positive energy. But where do you get your positive energy from? If you're giving energy, you have to get energy from somewhere too. And for me personally, play and sports has been a source of positive.
Mhm.
I wouldn't have survived the last 20 years without play and sports giving me the positive energy it did. In fact, as a policy I have taken many years ago, I don't take any serious decision late in the evening because I found that late in the evening is when my energy is low, I'm tired, I'm cranky, and I'm like, whatever, let's just go. And I take a bad decision. Next morning from 6 to 7, 7:30, I play the same decision, the same me, the same business. I think differently. And suddenly I am like, you know what? I can take on the world. What is this? It's the same me. So I think we
Wow.
underestimate how much happens in the brain and how your mind, if it's positively energized, the same situation you can react different. And I have found play and sport as a source of positive energy. For somebody else, it might be reading a book. Somebody else might be a walk on the mountain, whatever. I'm just saying, whatever is a source of positive energy, and play and sport is a fairly universal source of positive energy.
There's so much of upshoot out there with play and sport that both tangibles and intangibles. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
I want
So
to spend a
Somil, we have had quite a good conversations around play, around entrepreneurial journey. We can go on again quickly. If we were to kind of ask you, few years down the line, if somebody were to kind of come and make a book on Saumil, what would that book be titled as?
definitely there'll be a word of play around it. Play and have fun. I don't know. Laws of play. Learning through play of how to succeed in life and business. I guess I don't know.
Okay. And for all the folks out there who are listening to this talk, if there is an inspire someone today message, what is that inspire someone today message from Saumil?
Oh boy, that's a googly. I don't know how to respond to that, but I want to let's think about the notion of fun. Okay, and I would recommend to the folks who listen to think about fun not as fun is not only about having a party and singing and dancing, and fun has this kind of imagery that comes out. But the way you should think about fun is when three things happen. One, you're fully involved in the activity you're doing. Two, you're deeply connected to the people you're doing it with. That means you're not being left out, you're being included and you're connected. And three, you're pushed just beyond the boundaries, beyond the limits. Being pushed too much is not fun. Being pushed too little is boring, right? So I think if we find a way to have fun, and again, Fun has this superficial notion to it, but I'm thinking of fun as what is I think also called flow nowadays, right? Find your flow, find that fun. Then it's possible to do whatever you want to do for a long time. So have fun.
Fantastic. I think have fun by being involved, by being connected, and by pushing the limits.
Just beyond the limits, yes.
Wonderful. Saumil, thanks so much for sharing those insights, those wisdoms from your experience. It's all about play and sport and the metaphor of play and sport in the real world. Thank you so much, Saumil.
Thank you, Shrikant. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening into today's edition of Inspire Someone Today. It's been a privilege to bring in these conversations. If you like this episode and have any feedback or comments, do mail me at inspiresomeonetodaypodcast@gmail.com. Inspiring someone is like creating ripples around us. If you like what to listen, feel free to share them and let's create ripples of inspiration. Do not forget to follow me on my Instagram handle @InspireSomeoneTodayPodcast for all the latest updates. This is Shrikant, your host, signing off, and until next time, keep inspiring.